I found my grandmother's hidden memoir 3 days after her funeral, and what was written inside tore our family apart in ways I never imagined possible. Some secrets, it turns out, are buried for a reason. Grandma Eleanor died on a Tuesday in September. Peacefully, they said. In her sleep, surrounded by the lavender sachets she'd kept in her nightstand for 40 years. The funeral was beautiful. Everyone came. Her 4 children, all 12 grandchildren, even her younger sister who'd flown in from Arizona. We cried, we laughed, we told stories about her terrible meatloaf and her incredible hugs. It felt like closure. Like we'd said goodbye the right way. But 3 days later, while cleaning out her house, I found something that made me realize we'd never really known her at all. I was in her attic. My mom had asked me to go through some of the old boxes up there, sort out what could be donated and what should be kept. It was hot and dusty, and I was ready to be done. I'd already gone through 6 boxes of old Christmas decorations and moth-eaten quilts when I found it. A small leather trunk pushed into the corner, covered with a paint-stained drop cloth. It wasn't locked. The hinges creaked when I opened it. Inside were notebooks. Dozens of them. All filled with Grandma Eleanor's careful, slanted handwriting. The first one had a date on the cover. January 1st, 1953. I opened it and started reading. By the 3rd page, my hands were shaking. It was a memoir. A complete, detailed account of her entire life. Starting from her childhood in rural Pennsylvania, through her marriage to my grandfather, through raising 4 kids, through everything. And it wasn't the sanitized version we'd grown up hearing. This was raw, honest, unflinching. I sat on that attic floor for 3 hours, reading page after page, and with every word, the grandmother I thought I knew dissolved into someone completely different. Someone complicated. Someone who'd made choices I couldn't reconcile with the woman who'd baked me cookies and braided my hair. I didn't tell anyone right away. I took the trunk home. Told my mom I'd found some old photo albums and wanted to go through them carefully. She didn't question it. That night, I stayed up until 4 in the morning reading. My husband found me in the living room, surrounded by notebooks, crying. He asked what was wrong. I told him I didn't even know where to start. The memoir covered everything. Her affair with a neighbor in 1967. The baby she'd given up for adoption before she met my grandfather. The real reason she and her brother hadn't spoken for 30 years. The money she'd secretly sent to someone in California for decades. Every family story I'd ever been told was rewritten in those pages. And the truth was so much messier than the myth. I knew I had to tell my family, but I didn't know how. So I called a family meeting. Told everyone I'd found something important of Grandma's, and we needed to discuss it together. My mom, my 3 aunts, my uncle, and a handful of the older cousins all gathered at my house the following Saturday. I'd laid out some of the notebooks on the dining room table. My mom saw them first. Asked what they were. I took a deep breath and told them. Grandma Eleanor had written a memoir. A complete memoir. And it contained things about our family history that none of us had known. The room went quiet. Then my Aunt Catherine picked up one of the notebooks and started flipping through it. Her face went white. She looked at my mom. "Did you know about this?" My mom shook her head. She looked terrified. My uncle, Robert, grabbed another notebook. Started reading. Within minutes, his jaw was clenched. He slammed the notebook down on the table and asked if this was some kind of joke. I told him it wasn't. That every word was written by Grandma. In her own hand. Over the course of 40 years. That's when everything fell apart. My Aunt Linda started crying immediately. She'd found the section about the affair. About how Grandma had been in love with someone else for years while married to my grandfather. Linda idolized their marriage. She'd based her entire life philosophy on their love story. And now she was reading that it had been a lie. At least partially. My mom was reading about the baby. The one Grandma gave up in 1951. A girl. Born in March. Given to a family in Ohio. My mom looked gutted. She was Grandma's oldest child. Born in 1954. Which meant there was a sibling out there. Older than her. That none of them had known about. But it was my uncle who exploded. He found the section about his father. My grandfather. The man he'd worshipped. Grandma had written about their marriage in detail. About the affairs my grandfather had. About the drinking. About the nights she'd locked herself in the bathroom to escape his rage. My uncle stood up and said it was a lie. That grandma was lying. That she'd made it up. My Aunt Catherine asked why she would do that. Why she would spend 40 years writing lies in notebooks no one was supposed to see. Robert didn't have an answer. He just left. Walked out of my house and didn't come back. The rest of them stayed. We spent hours going through the notebooks. Every revelation was worse than the last. Grandma had loaned her brother, Uncle Frank, $50,000 in the 80s. He'd never paid it back. That's why they'd stopped speaking. She'd written about how much it hurt. How she needed that money but had given it anyway because he'd begged. And he'd never even acknowledged it. My Aunt Catherine went pale. Uncle Frank had died 5 years ago. There was no way to confirm it. No way to confront him. Just the words in the notebook and the weight of what they meant. Then my cousin Amy found something that changed everything. A letter. Tucked into one of the later notebooks. It was addressed to all of us. To the family. Dated just 2 months before Grandma died. In it, she explained why she'd written the memoir. She said she was tired of everyone thinking her life had been simple. Easy. Perfect. She said the truth mattered. That we deserved to know who she really was. Not the sanitized version. Not the grandmother who smiled through everything. But the woman who'd survived. Who'd made mistakes. Who'd loved and lost and kept going anyway. She ended the letter with a request. She wanted the memoir published. She wanted her story told. The real one. That's when the family truly fractured. My mom was adamant that we should honor Grandma's wishes. That if she wanted her story published, we should make it happen. My Aunt Linda was just as adamant that we shouldn't. That it would humiliate the family. That it would destroy Grandpa's memory. That some things were meant to stay private. My Aunt Catherine was torn. She understood both sides. But she was worried about the baby. The one Grandma had given up. What if publishing the memoir brought her into our lives? What if she didn't want to be found? What if it opened wounds that were better left closed? We argued for hours. Voices were raised. Tears were shed. My cousin Amy accused my Aunt Linda of trying to erase Grandma's truth just to protect her own feelings. Linda shot back that Amy was too young to understand what this would do to the family's reputation. My mom tried to mediate, but she was clearly on the side of publication. She kept saying that Grandma deserved to be heard. That her story mattered. But my uncle, when he finally came back the next day, threatened legal action. He said if anyone tried to publish that memoir, he'd sue. He'd claim it was defamatory. That Grandma hadn't been in her right mind when she wrote it. That threat changed everything. Because suddenly this wasn't just about honoring Grandma's wishes. It was about lawyers and lawsuits and family members turning on each other in ways that felt irreversible. My Aunt Catherine suggested we compromise. That we keep the memoir private, but make copies for family members who wanted to read it. That way Grandma's story would be preserved, but it wouldn't be public. My mom hated the idea. Said it defeated the entire purpose. That Grandma wanted the world to know. Not just us. My uncle said he wouldn't even agree to family copies. That the notebooks should be destroyed. Burned. Forgotten. I sat there, holding the trunk, feeling the weight of the decision pressing down on me. I was the one who'd found it. I was the one who'd brought it to light. And now I was watching my family tear itself apart over words written by a woman who'd loved all of us. It felt wrong. All of it felt so terribly wrong. But what happened next made me realize the feud was about so much more than just the memoir. My Aunt Linda stopped speaking to my mom entirely. Blocked her number. Refused to come to family events if my mom would be there. She told her own kids that their grandmother had been a liar and that my mom was trying to destroy the family. My cousin Jake called me in tears. Said his mom had forbidden him from talking to me or my mom. That he didn't understand what was happening. He was 16. He'd loved Grandma Eleanor. And now he was being told to pick sides. My uncle escalated things by hiring a lawyer. He sent a formal cease and desist letter to my mom and me. It stated that any attempt to publish or distribute Grandma Eleanor's memoir would result in legal action. He claimed that as her son, he had a right to protect her legacy. that the memoir was an invasion of her privacy, even though she'd written it herself. My mom cried when she read the letter. She called me and said she didn't know what to do, that she felt like she was betraying Grandma by not fighting harder, but that she couldn't afford a legal battle. She asked me what I thought we should do. I didn't have an answer. I'd read the entire memoir by that point. All 40 years of it. And the thing was, it was beautiful. Yes, it was raw and painful and full of secrets. But it was also a testament to a woman who'd survived impossible circumstances. Who'd loved fiercely despite everything. Who'd kept going even when giving up would have been easier. Grandma Eleanor wasn't perfect. But she was real. And that felt more valuable than any polished, sanitized version of her we could have created. But the cost of that truth was tearing us apart. My mom stopped hosting family dinners. Thanksgiving that year was fractured. My mom had one dinner. My Aunt Linda had another. My uncle didn't go to either. He spent it with his wife's family. My Aunt Catherine tried to go to both and ended up leaving my mom's early because the tension was unbearable. I went to my mom's, sat at a table with half the family missing and tried to pretend it was fine. It wasn't fine. My kids asked where Uncle Robert was, where Aunt Linda was. I didn't know what to tell them. Christmas was worse. My Aunt Linda sent out a family email. In it, she said that anyone who supported the publication of the memoir was no longer welcome in her home. That she was drawing a line. That family meant protecting each other, not exposing each other. My mom replied to the whole thread. Said that family also meant honoring each other's wishes. That Grandma had asked for this. That pretending she hadn't was a betrayal. The email chain devolved into chaos. Cousins taking sides. Accusations flying. Old grievances being dredged up. Things that had nothing to do with the memoir but everything to do with decades of unresolved tension. And then something happened that none of us expected. The baby. The one Grandma had given up in 1951. She found us. Her name was Patricia. She was 72 years old. She'd been searching for her birth mother for years. And when Grandma died, something in the public records triggered a match. Patricia sent a letter to my mom. Said she didn't want to intrude. But that she'd spent her whole life wondering. And now she knew. She wanted to meet us. To know her birth family. To understand where she came from. My mom called me sobbing. Said she didn't know what to do. That meeting Patricia felt like honoring Grandma's truth. But that it would also confirm everything in the memoir. That it would make it undeniable. I told her to meet Patricia. That she deserved to know her sister. That Grandma would have wanted that. So my mom did. She met Patricia at a coffee shop in April. They talked for 4 hours. Patricia brought photos of her life. Her husband, her kids, her grandkids. She told my mom she had a good life. That she'd been adopted by loving parents. But that there'd always been a hole. A wondering. And now it was filled. My mom invited Patricia to a family gathering. Just a small one. Me, my husband, my kids, my Aunt Catherine, and a few cousins who were still speaking to us. My uncle found out. He was furious. Sent another legal letter. This time threatening to sue for emotional distress. Said that bringing Patricia into the family was a violation of Grandma's privacy. That it was exploiting her memory. My mom ignored the letter. Patricia came to the gathering. She was lovely. Kind and funny and so much like Grandma had hurt. She told us stories about her life. We told her stories about Grandma. And for a few hours, it felt like healing was possible. But my uncle wasn't done. He contacted a publisher. Told them that if they received any queries about a memoir by Eleanor Thompson, they should be aware that it was contested. That the family was divided. That there would be legal ramifications. It was a preemptive strike. An attempt to make sure the memoir would never see the light of day. My mom was devastated. She felt like he was erasing Grandma. Like he was deciding for all of us what her legacy should be. I made a decision then. One I didn't tell anyone about until it was done. I took the memoir. All of it. And I had it privately printed. Not for sale. Not for publication. Just for family. I made 20 copies. Bound them in leather. Put Grandma's name on the cover. And I mailed them to every member of the family. Whether they were speaking to me or not. Whether they wanted it or not. I included a letter. It said that this was Grandma Eleanor's story, in her words, and that everyone deserved the chance to read it and decide for themselves what it meant. The reactions were explosive. My uncle called me screaming, threatened to sue me personally. I told him to go ahead, that I'd used my own money, that I hadn't sold anything, that I'd simply shared a family document with family members. My lawyer, yes, I'd gotten one by then, said I was within my rights. My Aunt Linda returned her copy, sent it back to me torn in half. But my Aunt Catherine called me crying and thanked me, said she'd read the whole thing, that it hurt, but that it also helped, that she understood Grandma in a way she never had before. And then the messages started coming in. From cousins I barely knew, from extended family members who'd heard about the memoir and wanted to understand. Some of them were angry, felt like I'd violated something sacred. But most of them were grateful, said it made Grandma feel more human, more real, that they'd always felt like they couldn't measure up to her perfection. And now they realized she'd never been perfect. She'd just been strong. Patricia called me too. She'd gotten a copy. She read it in one sitting. She told me it answered questions she'd had her whole life, about why she was given up, about what her birth mother had been like. She said the memoir was a gift, that even though it was painful, it was also healing. She wanted to thank me for making sure it existed, for making sure Grandma's voice wasn't silenced. It's been 2 years now. My uncle still isn't speaking to me or my mom. My Aunt Linda came around eventually. She called my mom last Christmas, said she'd read the memoir, that it took her a year to work up the courage, but that she was glad she did, that she was sorry for how she'd reacted. My mom cried. They talked for hours. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. My Aunt Catherine hosted Thanksgiving this year. Almost everyone came, even my uncle's kids, though he didn't. Patricia was there too. She's part of the family now, and it feels right. The memoir was never officially published, but it exists. 20 copies scattered among family members. Some of them read, some of them shelved, some of them probably thrown away. But Grandma Eleanor's story is out there. Her truth is known. And the family, fractured as it is, has been forced to reckon with the fact that the people we love are more complicated than we ever imagined. That secrets have weight. That truth has consequences. And that sometimes honoring someone means letting them be messy and human and flawed. I think about Grandma a lot. About what she would think of all this. The fighting, the lawsuits, the fractured relationships. Part of me thinks she'd be horrified. But another part thinks maybe she knew. Maybe she knew that the truth would be hard. That it would hurt. But that it was still worth telling. Because living behind a mask, even a beautiful one, is still a kind of death. And Grandma Eleanor had spent too much of her life hiding. The memoir was her way of finally being seen. Really seen. And even though it cost us something as a family, I think it gave us something too. It gave us permission to be real, to be imperfect, to tell our own truths, whatever they might be. The trunk is in my closet now. The original notebooks. I take them out sometimes, read a passage or two, and I feel close to her, to the woman she really was. Not the myth, the person. And that, I think, is what she wanted all along. To be remembered not as a saint, but as a survivor. Not as perfect, but as present. Not as the grandmother who never made mistakes, but as the woman who made them and kept going anyway. And in that, she's more of a hero to me now than she ever was before.